Well, good morning, America. This is Stuart Rhine with the Rhine Report. And this is the day after oral argument at the Supreme Court on the issue of tariffs. My headline is Katyal slays Supreme Court dragons. Justices trapped in the Tariffs case. And before I begin, a word of criticism for my friends and buddies at Legal AF. For God's sake, stop with the extravagant and bullshit headlines. It does not do you justice, and while I truly understand the pressures to attract viewers in social media, a headline like your, and I'm quoting you, quote, presidency ending ruling, unquote, subquote, Trump runs scared as Scotus prepares presidency ending ruling, does you and us all a great disservice. Just compare that to my headline, which I would hope is enough to attract viewers without creating a monstrous lie. It's ridiculous. Okay, I love you guys. Let's sort it out. So, okay, now into the actual oral argument before Scotus. I have to say that in all my years, I've never seen a better performance by an advocate. The performance by Neal Katyal, who was a former Solicitor General, advocating on behalf of the small businesses plaintiffs in the present tariffs case before the Supreme Court, was nothing short of magnificent. I can't even say it. Magnificent. Sweeping in his precise knowledge of the law, cleverly dismissive of some of the justices' ridiculous rhetorical questions, while appearing quite respectful, patiently firm in rebutting speculative offerings by the justices in the form of some absurd hypotheticals, and finally demonstrated a statesman-like approach to his arguments, mixing exotic and precise legal language with common everyday, firm but friendly speech to make each point. In short, he made them, or rather the 6 Nazis amongst them, look really stupid at times in this masterclass of advocacy. I really recommend that everyone who sees this podcast listen to his arguments and presentation of the facts if the transcript of the hearing is still available, and it very well might be on social media. Now, I was not really surprised. I was really pleased because Neal Katyal was the very man who should have been appointed AG, Attorney General, under that old fool Biden, as I had argued for to no avail. Of course, although he would have kept and leapt into action in the 2 cases that would have seen Trump in prison well before time was enabled to run out, and that is, as they say, unfortunately, water under the bridge. But I do believe here that the justices were actually in awe of him, incredibly respectful, and obviously skeptical of the Trump administration's arguments delivered by that strident and guttural voice of John Sauer, the government lackey Solicitor General. His advocacy in stark contrast to Neal's was bitter, ineffectual, and aggressive. Perhaps even this Nazi majority court understands that Trump is attempting to destroy the separation of powers so completely foundational to the structure of our Constitution, and is a bridge too far, forcing them to repudiate this remarkable attack on the exclusive role of Congress to decide and make taxation to raise revenue with representation as a non-delegation matter, with the strict limitations incorporated into whatever regulatory, emergency, or temporary permissions they might grant to a president in very particular circumstances. As Neal pointed out very cleverly, that when tested by another stupid question from Gorsuch or Kavanaugh, I believe it was one of them, if Trump is defeated in this present quest for an extension of executive power, obviously beyond its constitutional limits, he can always come back to the court under another legal cause of action by invoking a separate law. But the one question absolutely denies this one question, that is, absolutely denies his arguments and his claims to create tariffs that are in reality taxes levied against the American people. Next up in our fight to re-establish our democracy is the militarization of our government, regular forces, and federalized National Guards, with troop deployments flooding into American streets, used against a defenseless civilian population as set up and as precursor to maintain physical control of our whole society, and thereby maintaining dictatorial and tyrannical powers for Trump and his Nazi thugs, in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, using presently the invocation of 10 U.S.C. 12406 and its provision that enables such action based solely on an inability to execute the laws of the United States by quote-unquote regular forces. Now, as I pointed out on a previous podcast, there is a however. What is it? However, as Professor Marty Lederman of Georgetown Law has correctly pointed out in his brilliant amicus brief, the use of the term quote-unquote regular forces has to mean traditional Army, Navy, Marines, and does not mean state or local or even other federal authorities. And if this is the case, then the argument for deployment must fail, as at the time of Trump's invocation of the act, there were no such forces on the ground in the streets, so that the very pretext for the invocation is invalid on its face, as no argument can be made where or that regular forces could not execute the laws of the United States in their absence from the streets. That's the end of that, but that is coming next on the palette of the Supreme Court. God help us.